Hi, it's my pleasure. Thanks for
Open
having me.
chat room. Oh, happy. Um, okay, so now you are originally from Maine, right?
I am originally from Maine. That is true. Originally from Gorham,
Up in Cumberland County.
up in Cumberland County.
Yeah, a lot of our attendees are from right on Gorham. I mean,
Oh,
South Portland,
sweet.
Portland, obviously, we're right down the road.
Yeah.
How did you get into musical theater?
So I always was a dancer growing up. I studied dance. I mean, I trained at the Dance Studio of Maine here in Gorham and kind of that Gorham Town Center.
Mhm.
And I mean, really got into it. My sister was dancing. I forever as a kid, I did horseback riding. That was like what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to like go to the Olympics for equestrian or dressage, do something with that. But my sister was a dancer, and I just like around, I don't know, 8th grade, I was watching a show and I was like, I think I want to like do this. Like I just, it felt natural. It felt like like something that I was supposed to be doing. I don't know. And so I took a dance class and fell in love with it, and then danced all the way through high school. And I did the musical my junior year of high school and my senior year of high school. So I did a little bit of musical theater when I was in high school. We did Footloose, and I was like, man, I am a tenor. I can sing high and I can dance. I'm so gonna get the lead. I totally did not get the lead at all. It was, I mean, just was, a smaller part in Footloose, and then a smaller part in the musical my senior year. But then I went to college for dance. I always sang. I always like wrote music on my own. I didn't know if I was a good singer, but it was always just something I did. And then in 2016, I mean, my life was all about dance. I graduated from college in 2011. I went to the California Institute of the Arts out in Valencia, California, which is
Oh,
just
wow.
a little north of Los Angeles. Went there from 2007 to 2011, and there was a big theater program there. So I got to watch a lot of theater, and it wasn't a big school. So a lot of my friends were actors and musicians within the school. And so, I mean, again, it was just, there weren't a lot of us studying at the school. It's a very small school. So you're just surrounded by all different types of artists. And so I continued to kind of make music, but then it was really 2016, a choreographer that I had been working with for a while in more of the concert dance, modern dance world. He had choreographed the revival of Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway. And he was unknown to the Broadway community. He's been a huge star in like the concert, contemporary, modern world of dance for a while. He was an Israeli choreographer based in London. But we had commissioned him. My company that I was dancing for in Los Angeles had commissioned him for an evening length work. So we were touring that, and I was really familiar with his movement vocabulary. And so then he was asked to choreograph the revival of Fiddler on the Roof. And I actually, around a similar time that they were launching Fiddler on the Roof, they were rehearsing and it was going to Broadway. I was still in Los Angeles with a company, but I had an injury and took a while to kind of come back from this injury. But it was about April of 2016. I was performing again, and one of their dancers in Fiddler on the Roof actually he tore his ACL on stage, and they were like, we need somebody like yesterday. We need somebody to help. We need somebody to fill in for him. So I had been talking with a friend of mine who was in the show, just talking about the movement in the show. Because we were both dance geeks, and I was just curious about what it was like. And I was like, man, I would love to, like, if anybody's, I mean, literally the week before I had said to her, I was like, if, man, if you hear anything, like, let me know. I would love to do that show. And a
Someone's
week later,
taken out at the knees.
oh, yeah, it was awfully coincidental. No, it was really just, I was also looking for a change. So I had reached out to her, partly I wanted to let her know, like, hey, I am interested in doing this. And she came from a similar background I did. So, it just, I felt like she seemed like a good person to ask about it, and she was involved with the show. So literally, yeah, I mean, literally one of their dancers tore his ACL. So I went to New York a couple days later, auditioned, and then, I mean, within a week they had offered me the part, and I was in rehearsals, just, suddenly on stage. I mean, it was a completely new world for me. I like my shower thought I could sing, but I wasn't sure if I really could. And so it was just a lot of firsts, a lot of just like learning, that 8-show week, and having a director that was, like, well, it's where it is today, and the thing is we always get tomorrow to try to make it better, so,
Oh,
it's really about just, putting everything that you could out there. It was, it was stressful to learn, and I felt like the stakes were really high, and but that's really like, how I entered, the musical theater world. And I mean, it was just an interesting time too, because Fiddler on the Roof had just been nominated for a Tony Award for Best Choreography. So the dancers in Fiddler on the Roof were featured on the Tony Awards that year. And I mean, so as I was learning, I hadn't made my Broadway debut yet, but we were putting together the Tony's number,
Tony's.
which was a little bit, just like a little bit amended from the
Yeah.
show version, just to fit, the televised
Yeah.
event. So I had these two different versions of this choreography going on in my head, and made my Broadway debut. And 4 days later, we performed on the Tony Awards. And then I continued to
Wow.
make, to do the show on Broadway until that December 31st. So about April till December 31st, I was with Fiddler. But in August of that year was when, well, of course, those were the Tony Awards that Hamilton just took everything.
Right.
And Hamilton was this huge success. And, the creatives decided, they were like, this is definitely a show we need to take on the road. So they knew that they wanted to put together to launch this first national tour. So Hamilton took some of their Broadway company, and then cast, about half of the show was new people into the Hamilton family. And I got, through a long series of auditions, which I'm happy to talk about it, though I ended up booking that and launched that in January of 2017. And then was with them for, up until March of 2020, I was doing Hamilton. And may end up going back there sooner than I expected, but it's a, yeah, I mean, that's, I feel like it was kind of this whirlwind into musical theater.
Yeah.
But just so fun. I mean, the opportunity to get the opportunity to kind of, play on stage and let that work be the playground was just really exciting, and it felt natural.
Yeah, with a live audience, there's nothing like it, with like the static in the air. And
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine though, like coming into Fiddler where everyone else, because you were replacing an injury, everyone else had been doing this together already. They were at a level where you're like, hey guys, oh, the
Yeah.
Tonys. Yeah, sure. Let's jump right in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's a little bit of pressure. Did you ever get any kind of like imposter syndrome where you're looking around being like, you were the wrong guy. I think I came in the wrong door. What's going
Oh,
on?
100%. So they have a term, when you are going into a Broadway show, because, their schedule is so rigid, and, they have to follow all of the union rules. So, actors, our call is generally half hour before curtain. So we need to be in the theater a half hour before. But when someone new is entering the show, they get one chance to do it. Like, you're basically rehearsing the show with one or two other people, like the dance captain and
Yeah.
the assistant choreographer. So it's really just three of you learning. They're teaching you the show alone in a room, and then you get kind of this one opportunity to rehearse it, to do it one time through with the full cast, because everybody else has their own lives. And
Yeah, they
again,
can't be
union
here
rules,
just for you.
exactly. So you get one thing, they call it a put in. So you get that one put in, and you're in costume and everyone else isn't. And sometimes it's, I mean, it's really like, it is, you're just like, it's your one chance to really
Oh
go
my
through
God.
the whole
Sounds like
show.
sounds like a hazing, like an initiation,
Oh,
right?
it feels like that, especially with Fiddler on the Roof. There was this one section, it was the dream section. It's like Fruma Sarah is the character, and she's saying, it's this whole like nightmare
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Tevye has. And the costumes for the ensemble were these insane things. There was like this giant head. It was just a very uncomfortable but big, like, complete like Disney character type costume, evil, like dream thing. And so you see everybody else just in their rehearsal clothes, and you're the only one on stage in this huge silly dream costume. But also, it's like you're just trying to make sure that you clock all the parts that you're like, okay, maybe I have a question about
Yeah.
this. Okay, that seemed good. Like I can check off that. That's something that I feel confident about. If I can have one anchor of confidence in the show, I'll take it. But then really, I mean, for the most part, it's just, it's kind of figuring it out along the way, and yeah, figuring out ways to just calm your own nerves,
Yeah.
because you're gonna have, and the casts are so supportive. I mean, it's so exciting, being on the other end, then like helping new people come into a show. It's so exciting when new people come into a show, and especially when they're making their Broadway debut. And it's a really just, everybody understands how special of a moment it is, and really wants to support you. So that's really cool about the Broadway community specifically, is they all want you to shine, and also like everybody there wants their show to be the best
Oh,
possible.
right.
So
Yeah,
they're
of
there to
course.
help you, and they and then you're on stage, and even the first few shows, like if you're kind of in the wrong spot, I mean, cast members will just like physically kind of move you over, like, "Cool, you're supposed to be on 4, not 3." And it's like these minor things, but they end up making such a difference in just kind of the
Mm,
dramaturgy of the whole entire show. And it's just so supportive. And at least in my experience, it was really
right.
supportive. I feel really lucky for that.
Well, when you think about what makes up a company or a cast, it's like, aren't we all like, we bleed art and we're all sort of misfits I mean, we all grew up probably facing this, I mean, dancing in high school, that in Maine, best of luck to
Yeah.
you.
Oh,
Yeah.
tons, I mean, 100%. I was grateful for my dance friends, I mean, because we had our own little, supportive group. But, and I fortunately, like, a lot of them went to high school, and, some of them were, the popular girls in high school, and like, they always looked out for me, whatever that popular, but like, I felt, I definitely got bullied quite a bit in,
Oh, yeah.
growing up. And, I was the little dancer boy. And and I'm just now I look back at him, and I'm just so proud of that little dancer boy.
Oh, that's such a good message. I try to be kinder to my past self. I'm trying to do that too. Hard.
It's a whole thing, like
Yeah,
learning
man.
to talk to our, that inner kid. I mean, they're important, and they have things to say, and so much of what we do. But you're put together. It's things like this, and
Yeah.
we all come together in little ways to kind of honor the little kids inside of
Yeah.
us.
And I mean, we all survived it, so that's cool.
Right?
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
did it. You did it. You had one job and you did it. You made it.
Yeah.
Now you were with the Hamilton Company when they went to Puerto Rico. Is that correct?
I was, yeah. So I launched the first national tour, and then Lin-Manuel Miranda, he invited a few people. We kind of put together a new company, and I was invited to be a part of that, and got to, I mean, be in rehearsals with Lin and perform with him for a month in Puerto Rico. It was really just, I mean, a wild experience. He's really, it's such an incredible experience to perform the show, but to do it with the person that
Wrote it. That
wrote it,
yeah.
he's talking about, I mean, like, we knew certain things that, are references to Tupac or Aaliyah or these like hip hop legends, but the amount of other things that you just kind of don't realize are references to,
Yeah.
I mean, just incredible artists. And he's right there. I mean, he's like telling, as we're, sitting backstage about to do it, he goes, "Oh, did you ever catch, like, this is actually a reference to blah?" And you're like, "Wait, hold up. Like, how? That's crazy." Like, the whole thing is a reference to something else. How did you fit another reference inside of a reference? I mean,
Oh,
he's
sneaky
he's
does.
crafty. And
Yeah.
I remember in one show in Puerto Rico, we had somebody in the audience who was kind of like on their phone trying to like sneaky film, and it was in the middle of my shot, which is like the early
Mm.
big production number. and
Yeah, yeah.
and he, I mean, he's the original. I mean, all of us, like, if we, of course, you saw every now and then you forget a line or something happens, you make a mistake. But if you're consistently like changing lines, I mean, then you start getting fined as an actor. I mean, just like they're like, "No,
Right.
we need you to do what's in the
Yeah,
script, because
it's
this
not
is."
improv, buddy. Come on.
Absolutely. But Lynn, I mean, he created it. And so this person's on the phone, and he literally just changes and improvises this rap that rhymes perfectly. I mean, he's just the quickest thinker I've ever met in my life. And he basically scolds this person using their phone in rap, like fitting perfectly within the meter,
Oh
and
my
then slides
God.
right back in to the actual song like it was nothing. It was just so crazy. I mean, we're all on stage like, oh my
Oh,
God,
shit.
laughing, It's just,
No,
it's one of
I
those
mean, you
moments.
gotta come for the people who are breaking the rules like that. Like, come on,
Right?
lady, come on.
Come
Um,
on.
I think he must be that even with someone who wrote the role and is comfortable with the role and probably does it in his sleep. I remember seeing him on Graham Norton once saying, if he can get through my shot, he knows it's good. He's got the
Yeah.
whole thing smooth sailing. He just has to get through that one. So for him to mess with that one, that's the true test of whether or not he's on tonight or not. It's like, woo, ballsy. Woo.
It's true. And I mean, no matter like whether or not he wrote it, I mean, you know, I had performed Hamilton almost. I mean, I've performed it now. I've performed it, over 1,000 times. I've done the actual show, and just like it's such a feat to remember. I mean,
Yeah.
just remember all the words. There are so
Mhm.
many words, and the pace of it is just unlike anything I've ever
Yeah.
been a part of.
Yeah.
But then we all, and including Hamilton, and Lynn is not, he was never like this, like he didn't grow up dancing. I mean, he's, he has rhythm, obviously, but you add in the whole choreography piece, and the whole show is choreographed. I mean, the characters are
Yeah.
literally creating the set, as it's happening. And I mean, the set, there is of course the set, but it's a limited set in terms of Broadway productions. It's quite simple, and it
Mhm.
doesn't really change. We have a big moving staircase, but aside from the big moving staircase, the set doesn't really change.
Yeah.
So it really is. I mean, the way that it was constructed, the ideas behind it from, Lynn, Tommy, the director, Andy Blankenbuehler, the choreographer, and Alex Lacamoire, the composer. I mean, it was this idea that the characters in the ensemble, they are creating the set, and the music is creating, that lens into that world. And, and it's just about storytelling, and that you don't need to,
Yeah.
I say you don't need to dazzle. Yet we also had a rotating
The rotating
turntable on the
center, yeah.
stage. But in terms of Broadway productions, I mean, just a much simpler set than most things that are out there right now.
Yeah, it probably makes it a lot easier to tour. There's that much less time that each theater has to put into to build.
100%.
Yeah. Huh.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's a few websites that post lyrics and then kind of break down what they mean. And Lynn himself has actually gone in and added a whole lot of different notes that you can click on, where he'll be like, actually, Philip Schuyler did have sons, but for this, we're pretending he doesn't. Highlighting like the my brother and me reference that he snuck in there because he's a huge fan of their podcast. And it is like the amount of love and craft that he's really put into every possible syllable. It's like, holy
Literally.
shit, dude.
The last 5 years
Yeah.
reference in
Yeah.
I forget the name of the song. Yeah, it's crazy.
Same.
Yeah.
And I mean, and things like people will tell me references from the show that like I didn't even know, things that words I sang every day, for years. I mean, it's like I still don't even know all of the references. I know a big number of them, but there's still things that I'll have people come up to me and talk to me like, I love this line because it's talking about this. I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah. One of my favorite things on YouTube is watching people who really have no experience with musicals at all. And maybe like their friend was like, yeah, you got to try this out. It's like, I only listen to hip hop. I'm not going to listen to this stupid musical. And they're like, no, dude, check it out. And they'll get as far as, usually it's 10 Dual Commandments where you finally see their brain explode. It's such a great
Oh
moment.
yeah.
Yeah. When they're like,
100%.
"But this is Biggie." Like, yes, it is. Yep. No, it's great. What's while you're on tour, what does a typical day look like for you?
So we work, I mean, again, this 8-show week on on Broadway and on tour, it's a lot. So, Mondays are our day off. Those are generally sleeping or, I don't know, getting body work done. I mean, a lot of massage work. I mean, just because the show gets so physical. But on a typical day, I mean, I would probably, I get home late from the theater, so I would sleep in a little bit. I generally sleep in, probably get up and get going around like, 9:30, 10 on a good day, 10:30, 11 on a day that I'm a little bit more tired, but, generally get up. I mean, it's about starting that day with a good breakfast, honestly. And for me, it was just like a lot of greens or trying, just like getting like protein in to just kind of kickstart me. Um, and then I'd always have to do some form of, I mean, sometimes it was nice, you have the daytime. Sometimes you go grocery shopping and run those errands during the day when when the rest of the world is, working. So it's nice. There's a little bit of space like that. Just again, errands and, household chores. I had my dog on tour with me the whole time. So sometimes, I know he was like, I am so grateful he was on tour with me, but so sometimes, it would be after breakfast, it would be either, a gym moment or, go to yoga, kind of whatever the mind needed to at that time, if like, if things in the personal life were going on, I definitely relied a lot more heavily on yoga, to just kind of quiet the mind and allow me to get into my body in that way. But sometimes, especially in San Francisco, my dog and I would just take really long kind of nature walks, get outside. There's a lot of good walking in San Francisco. But on tours, it's nice to just explore other cities. I also like to, I would like to be a part of my city. So get up, eat breakfast, some form of physical activity, whether that is, a long walk, something, then usually come back. Every now and then, so I understudied King George. So sometimes on Thursdays, they would have like understudy rehearsals. So a lot of the time, most Thursdays, they would have understudy rehearsals. So if it was a Thursday, I would, usually come back, let my dog in, run to rehearsal. We rehearse for a few hours, you get notes, you know, you're, kind of just, it's a chance to be at the theater too, to kind of, I don't know, take care of other things. If you need to talk with management about anything that's going on. Sometimes if the creative team is in there, it's a nice way to kind of touch base with them before the show, and then I would go back home. So probably go back home around, you know, 3:34, take my dog out again, feed him dinner, hopefully take a shower
Yeah.
before, it's just like showers are always a nice way. Well, honestly, showers were where I would always do my vocal warm-ups. So I just felt like it made sense. It's nice. It's a warm area, you can keep
Yeah,
the
the
vocal cords
moisture and
nice and
yeah.
lubricated. Absolutely. And so I'd do my vocal warm-up in the shower and then, get ready, head back to the theater. You had to be there. Again, the union rule is half hour is call time. So you have to be there a half hour before. But, I mean, it was just such an intense dance show. So I would get there, and I'm not, I wasn't 23 when I was doing it. So I'm 32 now. I was, 30 when I was doing it. My body I've had multiple surgeries on my right leg. So I would have to take an extra half hour. So I would generally get to the theater an hour before. Sometimes if I had scheduled physical therapy, we travel with a physical therapist. So they are there to help our bodies get through the show. Everybody wants to get their physical therapy in towards, the end of the week when their bodies start breaking down. But generally, yeah. So I would, do physical therapy or just do my warm-ups myself, really get the body ready. Then I'd start getting into costume about half hour. And we start the show as an ensemble. So we're all up there just getting ready, and then curtain would open at 7. And then it's about a 3-hour show. So by 10, 10, once that, once that closing music comes on, once that the drum, that, going into, the end, once the show's done, we'd leave the stage. And I mean, I could be out of that. It was like a record how fast we could get out of that costume and into our, and into our street clothes. And, if I was feeling like I had energy, I would sometimes go to the stage door because a lot of people wanted to talk to us and, they want signatures, especially if I was on as the king. I mean, you're a little bit more recognizable as, a principal when you're in a principal track. And, and people have their favorite parts and you want to, but every night it's not sustainable to every night go out and spend a half hour to an hour extra. Sometimes my body just needed to get home, and then kind of rinse, repeat, you get home and, try to get as much quality sleep as you can before the next day.
Now, if you were filling in as king on a night, does that mean that you would do the overhead announcements to the theater, as I've seen happen sometimes?
Yeah. So generally, yeah. So if I was on, so each king, let's say there are two understudies and the main one, or the
Mhm.
principal track. Everybody goes into the theater prior to opening the show or launching the show, and everybody records them saying it so that it's the same voice.
Yeah.
So it is a pre-recorded thing, but sometimes if somebody calls out of the show or there's a cast change last minute, they have to, the king actually will go in and kind of do the entire thing live over the microphone, and will say, you know, in tonight's performance, the role of Eliza Hamilton will be played by, you know, Julie Benko, you know, and not, you know, and you'll say, you know, you'll say it, but as though it's kind of, you know, pre-recorded. But it can sometimes, you know, that's when you don't want, you're like, I don't want to stutter. And I remember I had to do that the first time I was ever on as King George. I was like, oh, and I have to do a live announcement. You know? But it's exciting. I mean, and people laugh at it. It's just such a fun little way to start the show.
Yeah, he always ends up being one of everyone's favorite characters. It must have been fun.
I always said it was like when I went on, I turned into Queen Georgina instead of King George.
Do you ever just like in your own house, like walk by a mirror and just be like, time to turn it on? I would.
I mean, I think I'm always like ready. I think I'm always kind of live in that world a little bit.
Yeah.
I think, you know, to be honest, I need to practice a lot more self-love. I need to continue to tell myself, like, when I do see myself in the mirror, like, you know, I need to play more like that. I think, you know, unfortunately in the industry, because it's, you know, it can be so competitive. It can be, you know, and it's, you know, at a certain degree, it's so easy to just kind of feel like you're turning into this, you know, a pawn in a machine, just some little bolt or some little, you know, thing, you know, within the machine of it all. And you just start kind of, you know, I mean, you know, I feel my identity was, you know, this dancer in Hamilton, and it's, you know, in so many ways, kind of being outside of it and being away from dance and performance, even though I'm involved in it in other ways. But it's been really important and necessary for me to kind of detangle Andrew, you know, as a human, with thoughts and feelings from, you know, this identity as a performer. You know, and with a lot of that, it's like, you know, I think, you know, this weird phenomenon happens, and I really saw this firsthand with Hamilton, because every single performance I've ever done of Hamilton, we would get a standing ovation. And that doesn't happen in life. I mean, that's not how life happens. And it was really amazing to feel it. And then, you know, you start growing almost a little like addicted to it. Like if, you know, if the audience, you know, they would all be on their feet, but if they weren't clapping as loudly, you'd start going in like, what did I do wrong? And you're literally looking at 3,000 people standing on their feet clapping for you, but the sound isn't the same as that night you were on, and you start over analyzing these things.
Yeah.
And somehow, you're looking at thousands of people like thrilled that you just gave this performance, and you're like, what did I do wrong? Like, well, then why is it not as loud?
That one's not crying enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's this strange little thing, and it's, you know, it takes stepping out of it and learning to, you know, again, just kind of love the not performer in you to love the performer a little bit more. And I think, you know, stepping away was hard, but it's made those moments of like looking back now, it's just so much sweeter, and seeing, you know, like how excited, you know, audiences were, and that, you know, I got to be a part of this thing. And, you know, for all the times that, you know, I was telling myself some story about how I didn't do as good of a job, or I was flat, or I was sharp when I sang this note, or I rushed the beat, and I feel like I ruined everything, you know. And it's like, you didn't, you gave what you could. You know, and I definitely would get more in my head about, you know, the acting and singing notes. When it came to the dance, you know, that was just everything I knew. So it was easier for me to laugh off things that like mishaps with dance. Also, it's just more common. I mean, you're throwing your body around, like sometimes something's going to go a little wrong. I remember this one time, you know, it was like the pinnacle moment when, you know, they're in the final duel, and you know, Hamilton is going through his whole monologue, and the turntable is just rotating on the stage,
Yeah.
Yeah. And the dancers are kind of running in and creating these little tableaus and then spreading out and then creating something new. And I was running from stage left. I had to run backwards across, like, to stage right. And my torso just was going faster than my legs. And literally,
Oh,
like, sit like downstage. Like, I mean, it's just in front of you, 2,500 people. I mean, I just fell completely backwards and skipped like a stone. And I mean, you have to laugh at those things. And my partner like hauled me up so we could get to the freeze moment quick enough.
Yep.
And I'm like directly across from Aaron Burr. And as the turntable rotates, like everybody on stage saw exactly what happened. And as the turntable rotates and finally Aaron Burr's back, the actor Nick, who was playing Aaron Burr at the time, as soon as his back was to the audience, I mean, he was just like losing it, laughing so hard, and he's like pointing his gun at Hamilton, and I mean, it's just one of those moments. Like, there's nothing you can do. Like, it just happened. You can't undo life. If only we could. And I just like that was one of those moments where, I mean, you have to laugh at it because things do happen, you know, and we are so hard on ourselves in so many other ways. And especially like personally, you know, it's those moments when we're rehearsing, you know, we get super hard on ourselves that in the show, if something happens, that something goes awry, then it just does, you know, and it's learning to really roll with those punches is
like
a job
totally,
in its
it was
own.
meant to happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they get a new show no one else will ever get.
It's crazy to think that 32 is like old. Oh my God. But
Well,
it's the same with any physical demanding job like that. You hear that from sports people all the time. Like, my God, that pitcher's 25 this year. Like, dude, like, I woke up and snapped so hard. I think that everything on the walls shook. Give me a break.
literally, literally, I was, you know, I'm saying, you know, I say, you know, I'm like 32 is, you know, it's, I don't consider myself old. It's just in through the lens of dance. But as I say that, I'm also like stretching out my knee, which is struggling really hard, like always like cracking bones. And
How, you mentioned numerous surgeries. How old were you when you had to have the first one?
so the first one was in 2015. So I was about 20, 25, 26. Yeah, I was 26. I just turned 26. And it was really, you know, I was working for this contemporary modern company. I had torn my meniscus mildly. So I was dancing. My issue was I would just, and I think it's a lot of dancers' issues is, you know, we're like, oh, I'm in pain, but this is just how it is. So you just push and you just like, I danced on a torn meniscus for a year and a half. And at no point was it like comfortable. It's just, okay, this is what I do, you know. And I was working for a nonprofit 501c3, you know, modern dance company. I didn't have health insurance. I mean, it was, you know, I didn't have money for a surgery if I wanted to.
Right.
So you just push through. And then I was with my dance company, and we were actually in Israel, and we were doing a job through the government. Actually, it was at the time, the U.S. Department of Educational and Cultural Affairs under the Obama administration partnered with BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, and created this program called Dance Motion USA, where a dance company from the States would go to some part of the world and do all of this really incredible outreach. And I mean, it was such a fascinating experience. We spent 5 weeks in Israel and in Jordan, and we were supposed to go to Egypt, but during our time, they canceled Egypt. Things just seemed a little bit too volatile for the government to feel okay sending this little dance company with, you know, our knowledge is dance. You know, I mean, that's what we do. And you know, and we did, it was fascinating to get to explore and like work with people. I mean, we were working with Syrian refugees in, I mean, you know, in the, you know, the middle of, you know, Israel. And it was just really, I mean, fascinating times. But it was also, we were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act back in 2015. And they had this big special kind of show. But we had to do a lot of like press, and we were traveling a lot on the day of the show. So we just never really got to like warm up particularly. And so and the stage was this kind of makeshift stage. So yeah, 26, and I just blew out the rest of the meniscus on stage. But because it was a government job and it was on government property, we were actually at the US ambassador's home in Herzliya in Israel. I got to, I mean, it was paid for. They had me in surgery the
Oh,
next day in
geez.
Jerusalem.
If it was
And
gonna happen, then it really had to happen then and there. Yeah.
it's true. Honestly, I do, in a lot of ways, I thank my lucky stars, for how it did happen.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, while you're at it, you're like 10. And also these teeth,
Yeah.
I know,
Literally.
my eyes are going, starting to go.
Feeling a little something
While I'm
in
here.
my
And look at this mole. I'm not sure about this mole. Yeah, to get it while it's hot.
100%.
Jeez, wow. I mean, of all the places that you've gone and toured, and it's not like you're there on vacation and you get to spend a whole great amount of time in the city, but what's been your favorite place in the world so far?
Gosh, I mean, I think
Coming at you with the big ones, watch out.
I know, and I love this question. And it's funny, this question kind of shifts sometimes. For a long time, it really
course.
was like
Yeah.
Tel Aviv. I went to Tel Aviv a lot. There is a lot of dance that happens in Israel and in Tel Aviv specifically. But I worked in Istanbul for a while. I developed kind of like personally, I would go over, I developed a relationship, like an artistic collaborative relationship with the consulate general over there. So they would invite me over to kind of give these master classes and then choreograph on this one company based in Istanbul. And I think it's Istanbul. I feel to this day, I mean, the last time I was over there was 2015. Actually, it was just before I was
Yeah.
in Israel for the surgery. I was over there in the summer prior, and I talked to all of my friends that I made in Istanbul, dancers that I was working with, dancers that I was creating with. We just still keep in touch more so than I think anywhere else that I've been in the world and spent time in. But I also think there's just something so cool about Istanbul. I mean, the sheer amount of people is just like, I spent a lot of time in New York, and my sister still lives in New York. And every time that I'm there, especially now, I had to spend about 3 months in New York recently, and was just like overwhelmed by how many people there are. And then I think about Istanbul, where it's like not 8 million, it's 18 million people, and you're just like you're just always around people. And that to me was just really fascinating. It just kind of like watching how a city functions at that volume. And then you get, within that, you have these just artists that want to talk about art, and they take time to talk about art, and they invite you out. Like, I would teach a class and they'd be like, oh, well, let's go to lunch. And then we'd spend 5 hours, at this cafe, we're just talking about dance and art and our lives and how, art is, I think that's really, Istanbul is really where I learned, like, art is something that's just, it's natural. It's as natural as walking or breathing.
Yep.
And I don't know where along the line we decided that to do art, we needed to be good at it. Like, why can't we just do it? It's so much to put on that artist's response. It's the artist's responsibility. I have so many issues, it's like, is that Renaissance idea, that thinking, the introduction of the rational mind, and, genius went from something, this little fairy pixie thing that would visit you in the nighttime to something that you were in control of. You went from something that visited you to something you were. And that's just too much for, I think, any artist. And I feel like Istanbul really always made me feel like we can just explore. And I feel like, it was just something about the conversations that I was able to have there and the people that I got to meet there. I'll say Istanbul.
That's cool. That's a good point too. I think the only time it really occurred to me that we do that is I was listening to a conversation that I was not a part of. I just eavesdropped rampantly. And someone was saying that he'd taken up painting. And the first thing his friend said was like, are you any good? And the first guy was like, what does that matter? You go on walks. Are you good at walks? Do you ever fall? Like,
right?
I enjoy doing it. Like, come on, man. And I thought, holy shit, you're right. I'm bad at walks, but I And it's true. It's like if you choose to do an art, suddenly there's a standard where you need to be like a weirdo Beethoven at it in order, or else it's a waste of your time. And it's not. And And it's a natural part and a necessary part of the human experience. And suddenly that's just become an elective. That's the first thing that get cut in public school systems when they don't have the money anymore, which is
Absolutely.
a damn shame.
It
And
really is.
we've got about 5 minutes or so. So is there a
Oh my
burning
gosh.
topic, a question that you wished I'd asked that I didn't, or something that you want to convey that you now get the chance to?
Goodness.
The universe is listening.
The universe is listening. I'm putting this artist responsibility. No, I mean, I think we talked about a lot of things. I mean, the important thing is for me, a lot shifted a year and a half ago for me. I had a really bad, I mean, just a fall. I had this accident in my basement. I was recording music, tripped over these wires that, for just what I was connecting my computer to, and did a terrible job catching myself. And I needed to, basically a year and a half ago, I felt like I needed to relearn how to walk. And it was really, I mean, it was, I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't a paralysis. I'm not trying to say that it was fully, learning how to use my nervous system. It was just building from something that, like, my ankle, it was my ankle had carried me for 30 years, more than 30 years. And I thought it was kind of like the end. I was like, man, I don't know if I'm never going to dance like I did again. And I don't know if I will ever dance like I did before, but we always have an opportunity in everything. And I've been dancing more recently. I mean, I've been, kind of thinking, do I want to perform again? So I've been just taking dance classes again. And I am noticing how much I've learned about my body and myself because of this specific
Injury.
bad thing that happened. And I feel more connected with myself, more connected with my soul, more connected with the artist within me, more connected with artists in general, more able to tap into my own vulnerability, but in a way that, I'm comfortable with. It's not, vulnerability, like with myself. It's created self-awareness. And I think, I mean, all I would say is just to anybody who's making anything, whether or not that's you're a chef in a kitchen, a chef in your own home, writing songs on your guitar, gardening, whatever you are putting out, whatever you are creating, making, the makers, we're all makers in some capacity. As soon as we think the bad thing or the worst has happened, it's important that we let ourselves feel like that I had to let myself feel like the worst had happened. But it's more important to remember that it's an opportunity to rebuild. And more than anything, it's a really precious opportunity that not everyone gets. And unfortunately, we were forced into it. But my God, does it give us more than you would get doing things the way that you had been doing them. I mean, it was a chance to look at my life and look at my choices and how I was approaching my art. And, we may end up nothing but grateful or thankful for the really bad thing.
Perspective is huge. Yeah.
And it really was. And, it was, I miss the dancer that I was at 22 for sure. Like, but I get to be the dancer I am at 32. And the kid who was 22, he didn't know anything. And like, that's great. Like, let him dance his little heart out, and he can continue dancing his little heart out in here. But, now I get to dance in a new way and I get to explore my art in a new way. And so I think it's just, remembering that, like, it's about just cultivating and building who we are. And
22, Andrew might have, had a different kind of stability or a different kind of flow, but a 32, Andrew, you're going to have a whole different energy that's going to, it different, not necessarily better or worse, but different. The similar thing happens to singers. My voice is not what it was when I was 20. It is not. It's gone down. It's gotten a little husky.
We love a rasp.
We love a rasp. We love a morning voice. You have to relearn your entire technique to make it work. I mean, almost every 8 years, I think I have to be like, okay, I can't do that anymore, but I've discovered this almost tenor kind of.
Absolutely.
And I'll miss notes I used to be able to hit, or lengths of a note I used to be able to hold, and now my lungs are like, but I've got new things. It's the same with you.
Yeah.
You can't be who you were, but who you are is just as damn good.
Absolutely. And that's always just like something I like to just tell people and like remind people of, and be like, I'm still working through it. And it's not that every day I'm like, God, you're perfect. I need to be telling myself, I need to be giving myself more affirmations, you know,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, we all have opportunities, and anything that happens, you know, has the ability to be an opportunity. And
Everyone needs to recognize the greatness of the King George within themselves.
Queen Georgina.
Queen Georgina, I love it. Andrew, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you
And
so
also,
much.
give your dog a big kissies for us.
I'm sorry, he's like up there.
No, never
Barking.
apologize for puppers. Never apologize for puppers. In fact, when we have Zoom meetings, actually, usually we'll set aside like 5 minutes ahead of and after to be like, okay, everyone.
That time.
Oh yeah, because I'll have my cat, will have her ass straight in the camera, just going, hi. And there's kittens on me, and it's great. But
I love it.
thank you, for real.
Thank you so
You're
much.
super cool, and you've done cool things with your life. And I mean, PortCon, you think it's just anime and stuff, but honestly, it's anything that people geek out about.
Yeah.
And dance definitely fits the bill. So you may have been a little like, who are these people reaching out to me? What's going on? But thank
No,
you.
I thought it was great. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. And I really appreciate you including me like this.
Of course. Well, good luck. We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Enjoy the rest of PortCon here.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yay.
Take care.